Growing up, Elana always had a strong memory. It could be said that from the moment she was born, she could recognize what was going on around her, but she couldn't understand it. As a newborn, she saw the disgust in her parents' eyes and heard her father say, "It's a girl. Send it to the country estate for grandmother to raise." But at the time, she just smiled, not understanding the meaning. After she was sent off, times were simpler. Her grandmother, the dowager of a minor, impoverished estate, was a stern woman. Elana was a very obedient baby, always observing, and the old lady didn't make things too hard for her, especially since she developed fast and was useful. But Elana always kept having dreams of her parents. It wasn't until her 4th birthday that she finally understood what they had said. And she could always see traces of that same cold expression in her grandmother. Each time her grandmother saw the sons of the local gentry or the sturdy village boys, she would smile, offering a sweetmeat or a coin. But no matter what Elana did, memorizing prayers, arranging herbs perfectly, she would barely get a grunt of acknowledgement. One day, while Elana was in the herb garden, the neighbors' sons came over. Their father was a freeholder who leased land from her grandmother's estate. The boys, Willem, Sebastian, and James, approached her. They started calling her a changeling and a freak, due to the fact that Elana had a habit of constantly staring in a daze and her hair was wild and unkempt from lack of proper care. What they didn't know was that Elana was just observing and processing things around her when she was staring in a daze. Like now, as they appeared, she noticed the mud on Willem's boots and the way James held his shoulders. Willem, seeing Elana wasn't reacting, pushed her. She stumbled but barely made a sound. His friends started bickering. "She's like a lifeless puppet," James said. They approached and grabbed her by the wrist, squeezing the small bones until she winced in pain. Seeing a reaction, they grew bolder. Sebastian and James started tugging her ragged hair. Just then, Elana locked eyes with her grandmother, who was watching from the manor's solar window. Her grandmother was watching, but she didn't come out to stop them. Despite being picked on, Elana's mind raced. Why? She had observed grandmothers in the village protecting their young. So why not her? Getting frustrated by her silent stare, Willem landed a punch to her stomach that knocked the wind from her and sent her crumpling to the ground. She eventually woke, hungry, staring at the ceiling of her small attic room. She heard the same boys inside the main hall, laughing and talking with her grandmother. It sounded like they were eating. There were other voices, too, Willem's parents. Elana thought for a while and walked out in her weakened state. She came to the long table, bruises visible on her arms, and looked directly at Willem's parents. "Master and Mistress Cole," she said, her voice clear. "Willem and his friends struck me today in the garden." Willem instantly jumped up. "You're lying." Then her grandmother was there, grabbing her by the arm and slapping her sharply across the face. "Who told you to lie and shame this house?" she hissed. The 2 other boys jumped in. "Yeah, we were just playing." Willem's parents looked deeply displeased. The master stood. "We see how discipline is kept here. We'll take our leave." The young boys shot her a glare on their way out, mouthing, "This isn't over." After everyone left, looking at her grandmother, she got another beating. But Elana refused to cry. She just asked, "Why didn't you protect me, grandmother, when you saw them bullying me?" The question seemed to enrage the old woman even more. "You have learned to talk back now, have you?" Her grandmother beat her and sent her to her room without supper. After that night, her grandmother seemed to treat her more poorly. More work, mending, scrubbing, weeding, and less food. And each time she went to the village on an errand, Willem and his friends would take jabs at her, knocking her basket over or tripping her with a stick. Elana started to pick up a feeling she didn't quite understand. Maybe it was sadness, or loneliness, but she didn't like it. They were a constant pest, until shortly after she turned 5, they were caught on the road and killed by bandits along with their parents. After their deaths, Elana saw her grandmother cry for the first time. She wept so much she took to her bed. But Elana couldn't reciprocate any emotion over their passing. Her grandmother seemed to notice and started shouting daily at her, barking orders from her chambers. With her grandmother Abed, all tasks of the household fell to Elana. Luckily, thanks to her memory, she knew how to do many tasks. But to do it properly was something else. Despite having seen the cook prepare meals before she was dismissed, Elana followed the steps by memory, but the taste was off. There were minor mix-ups when two herbs looked too similar. The food would sometimes taste bitter or bland, which led to more yelling from her grandmother's sickbed. When the silver ran low, Elana had to go to the tenant fields to help with whatever work she could in exchange for a share of grain, which always left her drained. In the scarce quiet moments, she would sneak looks at the books in her grandmother's solar. She could memorize every word on a page after one glance, but she couldn't yet understand them. Eventually, her grandmother's health improved, but the old woman seemed to stop caring for the estate entirely, leaving everything to Elana. Still, Elana didn't mind. She found a strange peace when she was away from her grandmother's constant shouting. With her grandmother out visiting the few remaining gentry each day, Elana would wonder more. She noticed the village scribes' lessons near the church. She saw that some students carried wax tablets and scrolls. She also noticed a few daughters of wealthy merchants entering. One day, she tried to follow them in, but her ragged dress and wild hair made the scribe's assistant, a man acting as a guard, shoo her away. "Where does this little beggar come from?" he scoffed, which earned laughter from the other students. Elana wasn't completely oblivious to the insult, but she didn't cry. She just left. Elana didn't want to give up. She went back to the manor, washed as best she could, took a few copper pennies from her hidden stash earned from selling eggs, and took a small, plain book of prayers from the solar. She returned to the lesson house. She held out her hand with the coins. "May I enter now?" The guard looked down at her, took the coins and the book, and sneered. "Who did you steal these from?" She explained she hadn't stolen them, that they were from her home. But the guard didn't believe her, or, better yet, didn't want to believe her. She noticed his expression was sinister, like the look Willem and his friends used to have. She started to back away. He had taken the book and coins, but now he was stepping toward her, his intent clear. Elana sensed danger and fled the moment he lunged to grab her. She ran, the sound of his laughter and curses chasing her all the way back to the manor gates. She hid in the attic. Her grandmother caught wind of what happened, came home, and beat her black and blue that night, telling her to hand over every single penny she found from now on and to never steal from the house again, despite Elana being the one earning money for the house. The next day, Elana was limping but still had to work. After taking a week to fully heal, she still went back to the scribe's lesson house. But now she went to the back, to the small, high window that looked into the main room. She pressed her ear to the stone and listened each time the scribe was teaching. It didn't take her long to fully figure out the number system. The scribe used pebbles and a counting board, and his patient recitations, 1, 10, 100, sank into Elana's mind and locked into place. She was becoming thinner from all the running and work, tending the neglected manor, helping in the fields, and then darting to the back wall to listen. Reading was more difficult. She needed to see which characters the scribe was pointing to on his slate. Thankfully, she had developed strength from her chores and she had keen eyesight. She found a rotten crate, dragged it under the window, and, when the coast was clear, would pull herself up just enough to peek over the sill. Her eyes would trace the chalk marks as the scribe's stick tapped them. Sometimes, a child would feel a prickling on their neck and whisper, "Master, I think someone's watching." The scribe would look around, but Elana was a ghost. She would drop down, melt into the shadows of the alley, and wait. When he looked and found nothing, he'd chide the student for daydreaming. After a few times, they stopped bothering. Perhaps it was just a cat on the wall, they decided. By the time she was 6, Elana had pieced together the letter system and how words were formed. She was very smart, but no one knew. They only saw a ragged, silent girl running errands. One day, she came down with a burning fever. All she got was a cursing from her grandmother when the old woman saw Elana hadn't drawn the morning water. "Lazy wretch. Get up." So Elana dragged herself to light the fire and sweep the hall before stumbling toward the village apothecary. She needed a tonic, but her grandmother kept a tight lock on the coin box, refusing to give her any money. As Elana passed the market square, weak and dizzy, she saw an herb wife selling bundles from a cart. Elana looked at each plant: feverfew, willow bark, elderflower. She'd seen them before, pressed between the pages of an old botanical folio in the manor. She mustered her strength and didn't go to the apothecary. Instead, she walked into the woods at the edge of the estate. Her memory was her map. She found the feverfew growing near a fallen log, the willow by the stream. She gathered a small bundle, her hands shaking. She returned to the market and sold the herbs to the surprised herb wife for a few coppers. With the coins clutched in her fist, she went to the apothecary, paid, and received a small clay cup of bitter tea. She drank it before passing out. Elana woke on a pallet in a back room of the apothecary, staring at a ceiling stained with smoke. No one was around. She felt hollow but clear-headed. Getting up, she walked quietly through the workroom. She saw the apothecary grinding dried leaves with a mortar and pestle. She saw an old man having a poultice applied to a festering wound. She saw a woman weeping over a still child. Elana wasn't fazed. She was processing, grind for powder. Poultice for drawing poison. Tears mean sadness. Eventually, she slipped out and went home. The manor was quiet. The pot of gruel she'd left was untouched. Her grandmother wasn't home. Elana waited until she fell asleep at the table. The next day, her grandmother still wasn't home. Elana continued her habits, but instead of the back-breaking field work, she went to the woods to collect herbs for selling. It was quieter, and she could think. This continued for days until curiosity overcame her. She started setting aside a few sprigs of each herb she collected, including a strange, pale mushroom she found growing on a north-facing stump. She knew she shouldn't test things randomly, at least, that's what the apothecary's careful labels implied. But she had to know. Based on what she'd overheard while selling, she knew which plants were for wounds. She made a tiny, precise cut on her fingertip with a sharp flint and applied a paste of yarrow. She watched the blood clot. She had herbs for fever which she no longer had, and herbs for coughing she'd have to wait. But the pale mushroom, she had never seen it in any market. She meant to bring it to the herb wife to ask, but the day had grown late. It sat on her attic windowsill, glowing faintly in the twilight. She was so very curious. She brought it to her mouth and took a tiny, cautious bite from the very edge with her front teeth. She swallowed. The pain was instant and internal, a seizing cold that wrapped around her guts. Elana wanted to run to the apothecary, but she was curled on the floorboards, drenched in a cold sweat. The mushroom was still in her hand. As a fresh wave of agony hit, her fist clenched convulsively, crushing the fragile fungus into a damp pulp. The world did not go black. It dissolved. Elana found herself standing under a vaulted ceiling of impossible height. She was surrounded not by walls, but by endless, towering shelves made of a material that was neither wood nor stone, stretching up into a soft gloom. They were piled with more books, scrolls, and strange, sealed cases than she could comprehend. She looked down. Her body felt insubstantial, too light. The ragged dress was gone. She seemed to be wearing a simple, gray shift. No one was around. She was about to reach for one of the closer books to look inside, but before she could, her eyes were drawn to a section of another shelf where a symbol glowed softly, a serpent coiled around a staff. Beneath it, words in a script she shouldn't know but somehow understood, medical texts and anatomical studies. She moved toward it. The first book she pulled down was heavy, its cover smooth and cool. She opened it. Inside were intricate, colored diagrams of the human body, muscles laid bare, bones separated, veins and arteries like red and blue rivers. Text surrounded them, dense and detailed, explaining functions, connections, points of pressure and pain. Another volume detailed needle techniques, acupuncture, mapping channels of energy she couldn't feel. Another was a pharmacopoeia of plants far beyond her woods, with procedures for distillation and synthesis. Another spoke of the art of disguise, of altering one's face with paints, putties, and subtle muscle control to look like someone else. Elana didn't know how long she had. She sat on the endless, silent floor and read. She didn't just memorize. She absorbed. Page after page, volume after volume, the knowledge flowed into her vast, empty memory, filling it with structure and purpose. She spent what felt like 8 hours, maybe more, until she felt a strange, tugging sensation at her navel. Sensing her time was about to run out, Elana also ran through the pages of other books from other shelves not related to medicine, this time memorizing the contents of the pages rather than reading them through. Elana woke on the attic floor at dawn, curled in the same position, cold and stiff. The crushed pulp of the mushroom was a dark stain on her palm. The house was still silent. She sat up slowly. She didn't move to clean up or eat. She closed her eyes and began revisiting everything she had read and looked through in that impossible library, cementing the knowledge and cross-referencing the diagrams with her own body. For a child of 6, her focus was unsettlingly calm. When she was done, she finally rose. She ate some stale bread and wondered if the mushroom could take her back. The remains were dried and ruined. She scraped a few spores and fibers from her palm and swallowed them. She felt nothing but a faint, earthy bitterness. After waiting, she felt a flicker of something she later learned was disappointment, but it was faint. The primary feeling was a profound, thrumming fullness. She had learned. In the days that followed, her grandmother did not return. Elana was truly alone. Using her new knowledge, she began to gather more specific materials from the woods, certain saps, clays, powdered minerals, and rare fungi mentioned in the texts on disguise. After weeks of gathering and experimentation in the empty manor, she succeeded in creating a flesh-like paste that could dry and hold a shape. She fashioned a simple face mask, one that could subtly alter the set of her jaw and the breadth of her nose. Around this time, her 7th birthday passed, unmarked. Elana had something she wanted to try. She went out and purchased a few sets of male clothes from a second-hand trader. Thinking of protection, Elana understood that trouble would find a lone child with money. She gathered different plants that were mildly harmful but, when combined, could be lethal. She still hoped she'd never have to use it. Returning home, she used a sharp blade to trim her wild hair for the first time, cutting it short like a peasant boy. She washed, applied the flesh-like mask to alter her jawline and nose, and put on the clothes. Satisfied, she was planning to leave the village for good. To perfect her act, she needed to test it on strangers. After gathering a sack of herbs, she boarded a merchant's wagon heading to the next town. She sold all her herbs there, found a cheap inn to stay, and bought a steamed bun to eat. Studying everyone's reaction, no one paid him any mind. Elana continued this routine in that town for a short while, selling herbs, earning coins, long enough to profit but not long enough to be remembered. Before leaving, she went to a merchant bank and cashed in all her coins for paper bills, ending up with a thick stack. Before arriving at the next town, she changed her disguise. She applied a more refined, slightly older-looking mask and wore better quality clothes. She was now a young boy named Jake. Reaching the port town of Sales, she changed her business. After securing a room, she surveyed the common ailments in the market district. She bought clay pots and a small burner to brew various medicines, salves for wounds, syrups for coughs, tonics for fever. She also found the right material to modify her protective powder, changing it from a lethal poison into a powerful sleeping powder. She was glad she wouldn't have to carry a death sentence in her pocket. Time in sales was measured in coin earned and herbs gathered. By the time the unnoticed milestone of her 8th year had passed, Elana, as Jake, started selling her small jars of medicine, changing her business. At first, people were skeptical. But after the first brave soul bought a jar for a persistent wound and returned the next week praising its results, business boomed. She earned a small fortune. But standing out attracted the wrong attention. The local apothecary guild and merchants noticed the unlicensed boy cutting into their trade. Elana noticed people watching her stall. She decided to pack up and leave after selling her last jar. As the final customer walked away, she took the money and bolted. They were waiting for her. 3 thugs cornered her in a narrow alley. "Our boss wants a word with you, boy." Elana weighed her options. Going with them meant entering a trap. As they closed in, she pulled a small pouch from her sleeve and blew the fine sleeping powder directly into their faces. The men stumbled, their eyes rolling back, and collapsed onto the cobblestones. After checking they were still breathing, she let out a shaky breath and ran. Luckily, she traveled light and kept all her belongings in a knapsack. She didn't dare return to the inn. She found a secluded niche under a bridge, changed her mask and clothes to a different set, and used pungent herbs to alter her scent. With her substantial stack of banknotes secure, she was finally ready for her true goal, the capital. She left at first light. The journey took time, but she eventually arrived in the sprawling capital city, Valoria. Getting into a school proved difficult. After many rejections, she used a donation from her funds to secure a place at a low-tier preparatory academy for the sons of minor guildsmen. She enrolled as Ethan, a quiet orphan. She became a diligent student, instantly topping the class. On the side, she commissioned a craftsman to make a fine leather case for a set of acupuncture needles, which she practiced with in secret. For lodging, she rented a small room at a respectable inn, paying termly. Though Ethan always topped the class, he stayed in the shadows, a background character. There were bullies at first, but Elana wasn't as simple as everyone thought. Using her tormentors as practice, she would strike without them realizing what she did, causing their bodies to not react properly for a time without pain. Finally, after an older boy tried to corner him, grabbing for his money pouch, Ethan's hand struck with a needle, disabling the muscle in the boy's grabbing arm. The arm fell limp and the boy tumbled down after missing. Ethan bent down, patted the shocked boy's cheek, and said, "Learn to behave when you're around me. Don't worry, your arm will recover in an hour." The story spread, adding to Ethan's already strange rumors. After that, Ethan was left alone, especially since the teachers didn't want anything to happen to their prize student. Over the next 4 years, Elana mastered the school's curriculum, learning more about the world, a world firmly ruled by and for men. One day, walking in an affluent district, she saw a couple. Her breath caught. She recognized them instantly from her earliest memory, her parents. They looked wealthy, followed by 2 boys and a girl. The first boy was older, the second boy looked about her own age, and the girl seemed a bit older. A brother born after me, she realized. And a sister. Elana remembered her abandonment, but a cold curiosity took hold. She wasn't planning to reveal herself, but she decided to observe. When summer break arrived, she switched from her, Ethan, disguise back to her earlier, Jake, persona. She secured a job at their manor as a stable hand. Over 2 months, she learned everything. The father was Arthur Kane, a successful cloth merchant. The mother, Michelle. The eldest son, Marcus. The younger son, her replacement, Jacob. And the girl, Jenna, who was the adoptive daughter, originally the nanny's child, taken in out of pity. Elana observed that Marcus and Jenna were cruel, especially to servants when their parents weren't looking. She heard the crucial pieces. They were planning to send for the country girl in 2 years, to form a marriage alliance. She also learned the truth about her grandmother's disappearance. The old woman had left for the capital, abandoning Elana, and had died just a month after arriving to live with them. Then, she overheard her mother's worried whisper to her father, "Are you sure that girl is even still alive? We haven't checked in years." Her father's reply was cold. "If she's alive, we'll bring her back to bring the family some benefit. If not, then that's that." The statement erased her final flicker of doubt. There was no family here. When her contract ended, Elana sold more of her potent medicines to rebuild her funds and returned to school as Ethan. But she had set a plan in motion. During the winter break, a town over, she searched for a girl who looked remotely like her. She found a poor family with a sickly daughter named Emma, who had the right coloring and age. Elana, in her disguise as the young man Ethan, approached them as a kind traveler and made a deal. She would cure Emma, but in less than 2 years, Emma would have to pretend to be someone else for a short time. The desperate parents agreed instantly. Elana cured Emma's illness with her advanced knowledge, gave the family a large sum of money, and relocated them to a cottage in her old home village. She instructed them, "When men from the Kane family come looking for a girl from that house, find me at Larkspur Academy under the name Ethan Vance." During this time, while keeping up with her studies, Elana began the tedious work of securing official permits, a merchant's license and, more importantly, an apothecary's charter from the Royal Guild of Physicians. Each application was met with disdainful rejection. She was a boy with no family name, no master to vouch for her, and her advanced formulas raised suspicion. The rejections were always the same: insufficient patronage, unverified training, application denied. Her frustration grew, but she waited for an opportunity. It came during her 13th year. While walking back from the market as Ethan, she came upon a commotion. A well-dressed older man had collapsed in the street, his attendants panicking. Elana saw the telltale signs of a seizure from a rare condition she'd read about in the mushroom library texts. Ignoring the attendants trying to shoo her away, she knelt. "I can help. He's not dying, but he will if you shake him." Her calm authority cut through the panic. From her belt pouch, she produced her needle case. With 3 precise, swift insertions at points on the man's neck and wrist, the violent tremors subsided. The man's breathing evened. The man was Lord Orwyn, a minor but respected noble on the King's Trade Council. Grateful and impressed, he demanded to know who this quick-witted young scholar was. Within a week, Lord Orwyn's personal endorsement was attached to her applications. The guild's tone changed overnight. Permits that had been impossible were stamped and sealed. She was granted a provisional apothecary charter and a merchant's license under the name Ethan Vance. It was a subtle but immense shift in power. She no longer had to hide her trade or fear the guards. Her work had legitimacy. Now, with her legal standing secured, she set up her first official stall. It quickly thrived from the sale of her potent medicines, yet she maintained her disciplined routine as the student Ethan Vance. It was during this period of newfound stability, when Elana was 14, that the plan with the Kane family was set into motion to see what everyone there was truly like. When Elana was 14, it happened. The Kane family sent men to fetch their long-lost daughter. They found a girl based on what the villagers said, but the girl seemed to have forgotten her memory. Emma's father, Mike, rushed to the capital to find Ethan at the academy. And so it began. While Elana could have gone back herself, there was a level of reluctance to return, and she didn't want to lose the life she had now. It was mostly out of curiosity that she did this. She remembered her grandmother's words saying girls don't need to go to school. They just need to grow up and get married off for a good bride price. After hearing her parents' reason for bringing her back, Elana felt they were the same and would trap her. Emma, coached to claim amnesia, was brought to the Kane mansion. From the reports Elana received, sometimes visiting as Jake, the treatment was worse than expected. They called her a country bumpkin, made her live in the servants' quarters, gave her scraps, rejected her pleas to go to school, and Jenna constantly framed her for misdeeds. Trying to help, Elana as Jake would, accidentally, witness the truth, but no one listened to a stable boy. After one particularly cruel month, Elana was genuinely worried for Emma's safety. Appearing as Ethan, she offered Emma a way out. Emma, still healthy and spirited, insisted, "I can last a little longer. They owe the girl I'm pretending to be for this." Emma was smart. She had figured out that Ethan was testing them for someone, but she was baffled as to why these parents treated her this way. She had talent, she could help around, she could speak properly, she never badmouthed anyone, she treated the servants fairly, but the people of the house just found her dirty and disgusting. Still, Emma believed that she could change them. But only 2 months later, Elana was utterly disgusted with her family. The Kanes seemed intent on breaking Emma. Elana ended it. As Ethan, she apologized to Emma's family and gave them a huge sum to disappear safely to a distant province. Then, she had Emma regain her memory, and loudly denounce the Kanes as kidnappers. Elana, as the respected scholar Ethan, formally brought the case to the city magistrates. The scandal was perfect. The Kanes had kidnapped a poor man's daughter and treated her poorly. Elana had even primed an old villager to remember that the girl was named Emma, not Elana. The magistrates fined the Kane family heavily for their grave error, and ordered compensation paid to Mike and Jane. The family's reputation was dealt a heavy blow overnight, and they had no rebuttal because the Kanes genuinely believed Emma was their daughter due to her slight resemblance to the mother. Emma was safely returned to her family. When Elana turned 15, she bought her first shop in the capital, an apothecary. She ran it on weekends as Ethan, the scholar merchant, and attended school during the week. It was a success. At 16, she aced the royal examinations, graduating as the top scholar from her academy with the first ever perfect scores. Her first official act as an adult was to register her own independent household at the Royal Registry, House Vance. The head of household, Elana Vance. Her public alias and heir, Ethan Vance. Now a legal entity and a wealthy, credentialed scholar, Ethan Vance found himself the target of ambitious matchmaking mothers. He politely but firmly declined every proposal, citing a dedication to his studies and trade. The pressure and spotlight, however, were becoming a cage of expectations. To escape it, Elana decided it was time for a journey. But she would not slink away as a ghost. She would leave as a thunderclap. In the week before her departure, she performed one final, calculated act. Using the credentials and reputation of Ethan Vance, she submitted a formal treatise to the Royal Academy and had it published in the capital's broadsheets. The paper was not on medicine or philosophy, but a biography titled, On the Fabrication of Genius, a True Accounting. It coldly, precisely detailed every achievement of Ethan Vance since his appearance, the top exam scores, the medical discoveries, the founding of the apothecary, the licensing. It read like a stunning list of accolades. It also listed earlier highlights of her journey before arriving at the capital as Ethan. She told the truth but structured it so everything fell under her Ethan Vance identity. Then, in the final paragraph, it stated, "These accomplishments were not the fruits of a man's privilege, but the desperate ingenuity of a girl the world had discarded. Let it be known to history that the scholar, Ethan Vance, never existed. The mind behind the name was, and is, Elana Vance." Attached to the treatise was a portrait. Drawn from perfect memory with exquisite skill, it depicted her true self as she was now, not the ragged child of the countryside, but Elana Vance, with a gaze of unflinching clarity. The caption beneath read, "Elana Vance, head of House Vance. Architect of her own legacy." The publication caused instant, volcanic uproar. Scholars denounced it as a hoax. Matrons fainted. The social order reeled. Others were utterly captivated by the beauty in the painting, while others thought it was an exaggeration. Still, they didn't know that it wasn't that Elana was more beautiful than everyone else, but instead that she took better care of her health and understood the importance of fitness due to her advanced knowledge. The beauty was just an extra. She wasn't trying to show off. She had simply painted herself as she was. Elana did not stay to witness the chaos. As the first cries of scandal echoed through the city, she was already miles beyond the gates, her masks packed away. The world beyond the capital called, holding new ingredients, new knowledge, and absolute freedom. She had given the ossified society of the capital a truth it would need time to digest. Let them argue, let them seethe, let them finally adjust their perception. She would travel, learn, and grow in power. And when the time was right, she would return to claim her place on her own unimpeachable terms.